This presentation is a cybersecurity risk assessment that includes figures showing how to prioritize risk response, the use of controls based on the Center for Internet Security (CIS) and industry best practices, a risk matrix used to evaluate risks before and after applying controls. A risk assessment focuses on the following topics: authentication, authorization, and access control. The different types of vulnerabilities divided into people, processes, and technology, and the countermeasures to each type of vulnerability. The risk assessment that the team conducted is based on this matrix designation. There are 4 levels to rate the risk: critical, high, medium, and low. These levels are the result of the probability that the risk may occur versus the impact that we will have on the entity. Authentication is any process by which a system affirms or verifies the identity of a person trying to gain access to the system. Multi-factor authentication requires the use of 2 or more of the 3 types of factors: something one knows, such as a password; something one has, such as an authentication smart card; and something one is, such as a part of the human body, like fingerprints or facial recognition. Active authentication controls include the use of MFA, with Microsoft Active Directory (AD) and cloud-based software with MFA functionality, within encrypted sessions, for remote login, virtual private network (VPN), and mobile use, and for wireless devices, for example, Kerberos. Additionally, the hashing, or at least the encryption of authentication information, single sign-on (SSO) functionality for enable application, the use of continuous education and awareness program to the workforce to secure authentication information, a mentality of ethical principles, and a code of culture throughout the organization, and the mandatory use of complex passwords. Those are all authentication controls. The following controls have not been implemented due to the short duration of the conference and the number of people participating, which presented an inability to apply countermeasures promptly. Moreover, the other 4 nations use different devices, systems, and networks, which may also be challenging since we are unaware of which technologies and processes they are using. Therefore, we have not implemented these processes and technologies for the following reasons: securing unused ports using the standard for port-based security. Reason: difficult to implement due to the short duration of the conference and the number of people participating. Next, lowering the chance of spoofed or modified emails from valid domains. Implement domain-based message authentication (DBMA), reporting and conformance (DMARC) policy, and verification, starting by implementing the Sender Policy Framework (SPF) and the Domain Keys Identified Email (DKIM) standards. Reason: unable to configure in a timely manner. Finally, maintaining an inventory of all accounts organized by authentication system. Reason: challenging to implement due to the existence of other countries' devices, systems, and networks, unable to configure in a timely manner. Therefore, all risks were accepted. The following risk assessment matrix contain authentication-based risks identified. Based on the risk matrix, the results of the evaluation of the authentication risk were critical pre-control. After mitigation, it went down to a medium. The team pretended to mitigate the risk to a lower level, but due to the unique nature of the conference, has decided to accept any residual risk and will implement routine auditing of AD as a precautionary measure. All residual risks were accepted. Authorization involves verification carried out by a system to decide whether a requesting user is permitted to access, to view, edit, or delete a resource. Authorization controls in place are based on the CIS and industry best practices. An example of active authorization controls include disable unnecessary or unauthorized browser or email client plugins. Limit the use of scripting languages in web browsers and email clients. Apply host-based firewall or port filtering to block unauthorized access. Scan for unauthorized connections across trusted networks boundaries. Enable firewall filtering between virtual local area network (VLANs). Protect information through access control lists. Implement the principle of least privilege. Implement separation of duties. Track and monitor individual access rights in AD. The following industry best practices or CIS controls have not been implemented. Use of application, library, and script whitelisting. Note: the dynamic nature of the conference and differences in technology applications and software between participating nations will make it prohibited to implement. Use automated tools to inventory all administrative accounts, including domain and local accounts, to ensure that only authorized individuals have elevated privileges. Additional accounts and administrative accounts will be built as needed for the conference and will manually review this as mitigation strategy. PowerShell will not be effective initially because of the lack of script development time during the conference. All risks were accepted. Based on the authorization risk matrix, the evaluation of authorization-based risk resulted in being rated as critical pre-control. After the implementation of controls, the risk became rated as medium. There are no feasible strategies to further reduce or mitigate the risk without significantly reducing system usability. All residual risks were accepted. Access control involves verification carried out by a system to figure out whether a requesting user is permitted to access, to view, or edit a resource. Access control in place are based on the CIS controls and industry best practices. Access control include: use the principle of need to know, enable firewall filtering between VLANs, encrypt all sensitive information in transit, protect information through access control lists, enforce access control to data through automated tools. Example: data loss prevention system. Encrypt sensitive information at rest. Implement separation of duties where appropriate. Track and monitor individual access rights in Active Directory. Use or search results, web results, lightweight directory access protocol version 3.0. Maintain an inventory of authorized wireless access points. Use wireless authentication protocols that require multi-factor authentication. Disable wireless peripheral access of devices. Use a wireless intrusion detection system, IDS. detect wireless access points connected to the wired network, leverage the advanced encryption standard AES to encrypt wireless data, disable peer-to-peer wireless networks capabilities on wireless clients. The following access control industry best practices or CIS controls have not been implemented. Only allow access to authorized cloud storage or email provider. Reason: assumption of access to email servers via AD integration. Role-based access controls. Reason: will be difficult to implement functional RBAC due to short duration of the conference, number of participants, and lack of defined roles. We'll use discretionary access control instead. Based on the access control risk matrix, it was evaluated access-based risk resulting in being critical pre-control and mitigated down to a high rating after implementation of controls. There are no feasible strategies to further reduce or mitigate the risk without significantly reducing system usability. All residual risks were accepted. People remain one of the most significant threats of information and cybersecurity. This is due in part to the technical nature of the field, varying levels of comfort with technology, and desire to help others. The most significant vulnerability includes lack of information training, susceptibility to social engineering attacks, general negligence in process-based activities. For example, do I really need to encrypt this? The technical complexity of information and cybersecurity. The following controls will be used to remediate these vulnerabilities. Perform user-level training that includes social engineering, password complexity, incident response procedures, and social media sharing of information. And create a culture of security awareness via posters, weekly emails, and social engineering exercise, in which a type of social engineering is used to find out if the employee complies with policies and procedures or falls for the social engineering attack. The ever-evolving nature of information security requires organizations to focus on proactive versus reactive business strategy. A properly funded information security program will maintain a security perimeter by employing the following: implement a penetration testing and vulnerability management program, employ patch, configuration, and change management program, execute hardening of systems and applications, use a defense in-depth strategy to secure information security systems. For example, malware protection, system information event management, mobile device management, VLANs, firewalls, IDS and IPS, and DLP. The following controls will prevent vulnerabilities: perform risk assessment of all critical systems and evaluate controls. Maintain technology per patch, change, and configuration management programs. And develop technology configuration based on industry standards and guidelines. Policies shape organizational culture and provide the foundational inputs necessary to develop policies and procedures. For procedures to be effective, they should avoid the following: fail to assign accountability to roles within policy, fail to establish a mechanism for enforcement or no consequences to violations in policy, being overly vague or overly specific, fail to address critical concerns within the organization. For example, business continuity and incident response are not tailored to the organization. After evaluating the policies in place, the following weaknesses were identified. Failure to assign roles and responsibilities. Reason: the dynamic staffing nature of the conference. If possible, the implementation of a RACI matrix should be used to assign tasks to the persons. RACI means R, responsibility, A, accountable, C, consulted, and I, informed. Also, failure to tailor policies to the conference. Reason: the shifting of roles and responsibilities in the final staffing of the conference and the dynamic nature of system configuration.